We are back here in Midtown Manhattan, right where the 41st Street meets the 5th Avenue. And this spot is also called the John Bigelow Plaza because this beautiful building was envisioned by John Bigelow. And just like that, we are inside this beautiful building, also called the New York Public Library. That's exactly where we were standing. If you look at that intersection outside, on this side of the 41st Street, that's where we were standing on this kind of rainy Midtown afternoon. I do plan to head out very soon, but just wanted to show you a sneak peek of the New York Public Library, which was commissioned, planned by John Bigelow. He was primarily a lawyer in the city, but he was also the person who came with the idea of building this wonderful institution. We are back outside and it's still rainy, but not rainy enough for us to be inside all the time. So while I will be exploring the New York Public Library soon, for now we'll get closer to that beautiful building, which is called the Chrysler Building. The street that we are walking on is the 42nd Street. You may have seen that we started walking from close to the 41st Street and 5th Avenue, and now we've come over to the 42nd Street and we are heading east. And just before we reach the Chrysler Building, we'll reach another iconic spot of the city, which is called the Grand Central Terminal. If you did not notice, as you go east in Manhattan, the avenues decrease. That's why from 5th we reached the 4th Avenue and crossed it. And that building you see right across, it's the Summit One Vanderbilt. Summit One Vanderbilt is one of the newer observation decks in the city. Of course, these are the decks where you can go high up and look at the city. That's the purpose of observation deck. So yeah, there's one here. But of course, there are much more important things to look at right here. We see the Chrysler Building, the very iconic and beautiful building that made a significant impact on the New York skyline. And of course, we see the MetLife Building and the Grand Central Terminal itself. That's an iconic view and an iconic intersection. You see the Chrysler Building, the Grand Central Terminal, and of course those pigeons too. This area is also called Pershing Square, as you may remember from the previous video, where there was one arrow that was pointing to Pershing Square. To be exact, Pershing Square is actually behind me. It's the area which is on two sides of this viaduct, which is called the Park Avenue Viaduct. That's called Pershing Square in memory of a World War I commander who was General John Pershing. That area that's under construction is actually Pershing Square too. This bridge that you see right here, it's actually a viaduct, which of course is a type of bridge. A bridge which is consisting of multiple arches, multiple similar arches. The viaduct was built once Grand Central was put in place. In fact, it was part of the same plan because the Park Avenue actually had to go to the other side of this building. the Grand Central Building. I don't remember very many other buildings in New York which are right in front of a big avenue. I know there are some buildings which are in front of streets, such as also the Penn Station or the Madison Square Garden, but avenues are bigger here in Manhattan, and Grand Central in that way is unique. It actually stops the Park Avenue in its tracks, and it's the Park Avenue Viaduct that takes traffic across the Grand Central Building, in fact across the MetLife Building as well. I think the traffic goes more like around or through these buildings, and that's how it's able to reach the streets which are to the north of this one. This, of course, is 42nd Street. This live music is quite something. I don't think I've seen such an amazing performance of Careless Whispers live like that, especially when it's right under the Park Avenue Viaduct. That's been quite something. Of course, what you see here is still the Park Avenue Viaduct, and we are moving south from the 42nd towards the 41st Street. This area is actually the Pershing Square. If you hear closely, we can still listen to a little bit of that careless whisper in the distance. And I really like this building, this modern new glass skyscraper, but it doesn't seem to have a name. Now that's iconic Midtown East. We are still in the general area that's called the Pershing Square. On my right, you see the Park Avenue Viaduct, and of course right in front, you see the majestic Grand Central, and just behind it, as you can read yourself, is the MetLife Building, even with a reflection in the building to the left. I guess it's time to reflect on this Midtown evening. If you notice right there, just behind this big machine, it's the spot where the steel part of the viaduct meets the stone part of the viaduct, because this is how it was constructed, the steel as well as the stone sections. And of course, this is that nice looking but unnamed building on this cloudy, rainy evening. I feel this lighting is probably not the best, and I think I'm not capturing the best quality video for that reason, because my camera is not very good in low light conditions, but still I'm hoping I can convey some of this wonderful New York moment. Wow, this is just too good. It's one of the best live performances out in public, I think. Like, just these random New York things you see. Wow, killing me softly. That's quite something. As we enter this beautiful building, that's the Grand Central Terminal. Just that energy in the air. I think everyone who's walking in or walking out of the terminal is full of energy just because of that music. Here we are inside the iconic Grand Central Terminal. This was actually the catalyst around which almost entire of this Midtown East neighborhood was built. And that chandelier that you're looking at, it's massive. It's 18 feet high and weighs 800 pounds. This part of the Grand Central Terminal is called the Vanderbilt Hall, and this is what you access if you're entering from the 42nd Street side, which is where we entered from, if you remember. And from the Vanderbilt Hall, we are now entering into, of course, as you read there, the main section or the main concourse of the Grand Terminal. You might be curious why the previous section that we've just walked from, wow, and look at that. Look at just how beautiful this terminal is, with all those chandeliers, 5 on that side, and then there are 5 right behind me. So there are 10 of these huge, and I think these are oval-shaped chandeliers within this main concourse of the Grand Central. Wow. And the reason the previous hall is called Vanderbilt Hall is because this entire station, the beautiful, the majestic Grand Central Station, was built by the Vanderbilts. So this is mostly a privately built entity. This is so iconic New York and so iconic Grand Central. That clock that you see right in the middle, this is where so many people from decades, in fact for more than 100 years, have met. Meet me at the clock is what people would often say whenever they were planning to meet in the huge Grand Central Station. This clock has even featured in movies and so many famous photographs, and I think it's valued at almost 20 million. I think I might just topple over clicking this one. I don't know about you, but for me this is almost a little bit vertigo inducing. Did I tell you how old this beautiful building is? It's more than 100 years old. This was built in 1913. That's 112 years ago. And the reason it's called Grand Central is because the Vanderbilts owned this train service that was called the New York Central Railroad, and this was a grand station for their grand railways. That's the east balcony, as you can probably read there too. And these huge windows on the east are of course iconic as well. I was reading that at the time of World War II, the east balcony was the area where they put these large banners in order to promote war bonds, to take money from people to fight the war. The east balcony area today also houses a very famous Apple store. I'm sure it's quite the experience to buy your Apple products from there. And it's so interesting to think about the fact that this building was built before World War I. So the reference of the war bonds that I gave, that was for World War II. Wow, look at that beauty. One more massive chandelier. Grand Central is just magical. So we are continuing to walk north from the beautiful Grand Central. It was also the original direction in which we were walking when we entered this area from the 42nd Street. So if you keep walking, then of course you reach the MetLife building. And if we take a few minutes back into this video, you would remember seeing the MetLife building just behind the Grand Central Terminal, and that is this very MetLife building. And if we walk past the MetLife building, then we arrive at this one, which again, you might remember we briefly mentioned this. This is the iconic, maybe not as iconic as Grand Central, but still iconic and very beautiful Helmsley building. And now, as we are just about to end today's walk, we've reached another iconic building that we saw earlier in this video. This one is the Chrysler Building itself, an iconic part of the Manhattan skyline.